So Donald Trump's historically unpopular VP pick, JD Vance, is fighting for his life every single time he gives an interview, every single time he holds a rally or gives a speech, and today was no different. JD Vance just did a sit-down interview with Dana Bash on CNN, and it did not go well for him. He showed that he cannot handle the slightest bit of pushback, whether it's over abortion, or Project 2025, or being a weirdo. JD Vance cannot handle it at all, and that is why Donald Trump is currently melting down. I want to read an excerpt from an article titled "Inside the Worst 3 Weeks of Donald Trump's Campaign." And this article details how Donald Trump is nearing a breaking point. He is getting pissed off at JD Vance. He's getting pissed off that he's losing in the polls and that his crowds aren't as big as VP Harris's. The crowd size is a really big one for him. You guys saw his press conference where he melted down over his crowd size. This reads, "People around the former and would-be president see a candidate knocked off his bearings, disoriented by his new contest with Kamala Harris, and unsure of how to take her on." And there is one part of this article where Donald Trump throws JD Vance under the bus, and Donald Trump essentially calls him the weird one. Really quickly, make sure you like this video, subscribe to MeidasTouch, and subscribe to my channel, Adam Mockler. It's in the description below. This reads, "Over the past 2 weeks, Mr. Trump has fielded complaints from donors about his running mate, JD Vance, as news coverage exploring Mr. Vance's past statements unearthed and then exhaustively critiqued remarks including a lament that America was run by childless cat ladies." You guys have heard the remark. Mr. Trump dismissed out of hand donor suggestions that he would replace Mr. Vance on the ticket, but Mr. Trump privately asked his advisors whether they had known about Mr. Vance's comments about childless women before Mr. Trump chose him. And here is where it gets hilarious. Here is where he throws JD Vance under the bus. And at the August 2nd fundraiser, according to two people with knowledge of what took place, when a donor at the roundtable discussion asked about Democrats trying to paint the Republican ticket as weird, Mr. Trump replied, "Not about me, they're saying that about JD." And that may be one of the funniest, most arrogant, most Trumpian answers I have ever heard in my life. He immediately projects. He cannot even fathom being the weird one for 1 second, so he just throws it over to JD. And the worst part about it is, JD gladly takes the heat. He gladly is like, "Yeah, I am the weird one." Take a look at this interview with CNN's Dana Bash.
I want to move on to something that Governor Walz has called you and Donald Trump, and that is weird.
Sure.
And it is taken off. The New York Times reports that when Donald Trump was asked about it, he said, "Not me, they're talking about JD."
Well, certainly they've levied that charge against me more than anybody else, but I think that it drives home how they're trying to distract from their own policy failures. I mean, look, this is fundamentally schoolyard bully stuff. They can accuse me of whatever they want to accuse me of. As Harry S. Truman once said, if you can't take the heat, stay out of the kitchen.
Give me a break. This dude's running mate is the one who melts down over the slightest bit of pushback or slightest bit of critique. And if you want to talk about schoolyard insults or whatever he said, Donald Trump is the one whose claim to fame in American politics was coming up with nicknames for people, whether they were Republicans, whether they were Democrats. If he didn't like them, he came up with nicknames. He started this entire schoolyard bullying phenomenon in politics. We make up one name for them. We call them weird, and all of a sudden they are melting down, and Donald Trump is acting like a third grader on a schoolyard, like, "I'm not weird, they're weird."
And I'm doing this because I think that me being vice president will help improve people's lives. So I accept their attacks, but I think that it is a little bit of projection, Dana. If you think about just take a couple of days ago. Tim Walz gives this big speech. He's been announced as the VP nominee. And I remember when I had just been announced as the VP nominee, I gave my big speech and I saw my wife and I gave her a big hug and a kiss because I love my wife and I think that's what a normal person does. Tim Walz gave his wife a nice, firm Midwestern handshake and then tried to sort of awkwardly correct for it. So I think that what it is two people, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who aren't comfortable in their own skin because they aren't comfortable with their policy positions for the American people.
All right, first of all, JD Vance, keep Tim Walz's name out of your mouth. Secondly, people were saying that nobody would ever shake their wife's hand, but we found a picture of Donald Trump shaking Melania's hand, and what nobody ever should do is touch their daughter like this or talk about their daughter like Donald Trump repeatedly has. So, if you want to talk about which party is weird, it clearly is the Republican Party, and you won't find old remarks of Tim Walz And you won't find old videos of Tim Walz making demeaning remarks about women, about childless cat ladies, about people who sometimes can't have children for biological reasons. He goes on Tucker Carlson and says the most egregious, heated comments to his right-wing echo chamber, and now that it's biting him in the ass 3 years later, he is all of a sudden mad. Here's JD Vance being asked by Dana Bash if VP Harris is black or not.
To ask you this, but I do, because Donald Trump has been attacking Kamala Harris's racial identity.
He has not been, but ask your question.
Well, he questioned her racial identity. He said a number of years ago she happened to turn black. Her father is Jamaican. Do you believe Kamala Harris is black?
I believe that Kamala Harris is whatever she says she is, but I believe importantly that President Trump is right that she is a chameleon. She pretends to be one thing in front of one audience. She pretends to be something different in front of another audience. Look, Dana, she's not running a political campaign. She's running a movie. She only speaks to voters behind a teleprompter. Everything is scripted. She doesn't have her policy positions out there. She hasn't answered why she wanted to ban fracking, but now she doesn't.
So essentially, JD Vance decides to double down on these racial attacks while saying that they aren't actually racial attacks. And also, if VP Harris isn't running a campaign, what does that say about you two? Because you and Donald Trump are being completely wiped by Kamala Harris, and if she's not even running a campaign, then that's kind of saying a lot about you guys.
She wanted to fund police, but now she doesn't. She wanted to open the border, but now she doesn't. She should have to answer for why she presents a different set of policies to one audience and a different set of policies to another audience. And I think that's what President Trump is getting at. This is a fundamentally fake person. She's different depending on who she's in front of.
With respect, you changed your position on an important thing, which is Donald Trump.
Of course I did.
And so why are you not a chameleon?
Because, Dana, I've explained to the American people what's different. People change their minds when the facts change, they should, but if you want to be the people's vice president or president, you should have to stand before an interviewer and say, this is why I changed my mind. So
let me tell you what's different about JD Vance. He realized he could leap at this opportunity to be more powerful, to be more rich, to be more famous if he hopped onto the MAGA movement, and Donald Trump said, hey, come aboard, and now he is riding his way, hopefully into a loss, but he is an opportunist. He wants to further his political career. So JD Vance is the last person that should be calling VP Harris a chameleon or attacking her for changing her views when his entire career is built off of the back of opportunism. But to finish this clip,
you should have to stand before an interviewer and say, this is why I changed my mind. So to everybody who's seen that I criticized Donald Trump, since he asked the question, here are two things.
You didn't just criticize him, you said he could be America's Hitler.
Well, that's a criticism, and I didn't say that exactly, but set that to the side. What I said about Donald Trump and what I believed about Donald Trump, two things that really changed. First of all, I didn't think Donald Trump would be a good president. He was a great president. Wages were rising. The world was more peaceful. Remember, when Donald Trump was running for president the first time, they said he would start World War III. He brought more peace to the world than any president of my lifetime.
Donald Trump would pull us out of NATO and destabilize the entire global order if he had it his way, but also any sort of economic growth that happened under Donald Trump's presidency was just off of the back of President Barack Obama's term. He oversaw an economic recovery after 2008, after 2009, and then Trump comes in and takes credit for all of it. Either way, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like, comment a blue heart, subscribe to MeidasTouch, subscribe to my channel in the description below, and I'll see you in the next video.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.